Welcome back to the True Body Intelligence Podcast. My name is Lee Maher, and I'm your host. And today, we're going to get down into turning on the emotional body and why that's important. In the previous episode and part, what we discussed is turning on the mental body. Now, the wonderful thing about this is that the dew and the ren, the governing vessel and the conception vessel, the brain and the sexual organs, they each produce a very vital substance for our existence. The brain, the electricity, and the sexual organs, the magnetism. Every organ in your body is connected to a different element. And guess what the dew and the ren are responsible for? They're responsible for circulating all of your energy through them and then feeding all the other organs. So the brain and the sexual, the analytical, and the emotional, when they're connected in harmony, working together, the rest of your body's being fed with a massive, abundant amount of electromagnetic energy. And you're flourishing mentally. You're flourishing emotionally. So, let's get into this.
Christopher, we're back.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy we're throwing down. This is exciting.
So, emotional body. It's a pretty big subject.
It's a very big subject, and it feeds into a lot of the other stuff that we've gone over so far, right? That we've shared with all the content we've been putting together, especially when we talk about mental health, mental wellness. Like, how can you leave out emotional wellness, right? Because when your emotions are in a really good flow, meaning they're coursing freely through your body, your brain is happy, right? And when they're stagnant, shut off and closed off, well, then your brain is stressed. So I want to relate more of what we're talking about now to the previous episode. So what we talked about before was the alignment process in the last episode. If you missed the last episode and you skipped forward to this one, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, literally start at the beginning and follow them episode to episode, part to part, because we've strategically put this together in a way to help you the most. All right. So the alignment process, what we went over is that it gives you an opportunity to turn on both hemispheres of your brain electrically. But guess what we have to also do? We have to work with the lower brain. And what's the lower brain? The lower brain are your sexual organs, okay? And the way that we do that is by working with the muscles, psoas major and psoas minor, which are the only structural muscles, major structural muscles attached to the front of the spine, okay? So that turns on your emotional body. So when I'm working with someone, once we get their brains turned on electrically, I know for sure we need to turn on their body emotionally. Now the brain's turned on electrically, the body's turned on emotionally. Now we've gone through, like, those are the first two basic steps in someone's development. So, and there's no substitute for this, right? There's no green juice you can drink. There's no guru you can visit in India. There's no sauna you can sit in. There's no weight you can lift that's a substitute for the things that I'm talking about. These are for people who really are into true transformation, right? That really want to get out of whatever they're in and get into something that's more in alignment with their life's purpose. So we go through a process where now we start to use isometric strength. And we went over that in one of the previous episodes. And we put the person on the floor and we start strengthening their hip flexors through concentric contractions, right? And then we do an isometric contraction at the very top, so their knees super close to their chest. And then they resist with maximal force. And then we slowly beat that force. And if we slowly beat that force, that tissue starts to open up. 99% of the time, I get 30% of the way down, and guess what happens for the person? This is on the first repetition. They stop. They let their leg go long and they make this sound. They go, oh. And I stop them and I go, oh, this is interesting. So you completely disengage from your own will center, right? So imagine, I got professional athletes coming to me, best athletes in the world. And these guys disengage from their will when something gets difficult. And you're thinking, man, if athletes do this, imagine what other people do. Okay, when it comes to the body. And so I do 5 strengths on the left, I do 5 strengths on the right. I'll come back to the left side. We do 1 repetition of an eccentric contraction, right? And I find out exactly what I told you, where they disengage from their will. And then I leave them in the room. I let them lay there. 5 minutes. I come back. Guess what happens? We do 1 more rep on the left, 1 more rep on the right. Now, they've got twice as much force for twice as long. Okay? Now I leave the room. Now I leave for 10 minutes. I come back. 1 more rep on the left, 1 more rep on the right. Guess what's going to happen? Now they've got full force all the way up, all the way down. So imagine, they had very little force. Very. I could literally push them with 1 finger. These are grown men. I have guys that I work with that are 265 pounds. Okay? Grown men. I can beat them with a few fingers, pushing their leg down. I come back for like that 5th repetition. I can't move them with all of my body weight and all of my force. And remember, I'm a former U.S. Navy SEAL, right? So, you know, my will is indomitable, right? And here I am struggling against the force of this 70-year-old woman who 45 minutes ago I could push her leg down with 1 finger. So imagine that. Nowhere in any training book will you find the information I told you right now. Well, guess what? The muscles associated with activating and turning on the emotional body, guess which muscles in the body are the strongest in the human body? Those 2 muscles. Psoas major and psoas minor. So, what does that tell you? Okay, so the universe, God, Source, created a body, and He made these 2 muscles the strongest of all of them. By far. Like nothing else is close. Okay? Made these the strongest. And yet we give the least amount of attention to the emotional body. Does that make any sense?
Not very much, no.
No. Right? It's senseless. So, I said, okay, once I discovered this, the question is, how did I discover it? I'm in Iceland, right? One of my buddies, his name was Ragnar Jonasson, invites me to come out there and stay with him. He's also, at the time, he was a body worker, right? He studied Rolfing and some other forms of healing. And this elderly lady comes to see me because she's got unremitting back pain. Like, it's just like, it never ceases. And I thought, what am I going to do with this lady? Like, she's frail. And I heard this little voice say, hey, listen, what you're going to do. You're going to do 5 repetitions of strength. You're going to do 1 repetition, and you're going to walk out of the room and give her all the space she needs to lay there and do nothing. And I thought, this woman's going to be paying me to do nothing? She's going to be pissed. She's going to think, this guy spent like 3 minutes with me, and now I have to pay him? So I followed the order, the exact instructions, By the time I got to the 5th round, I couldn't even move this old bird, right? She got up, walked around. How's the stiffness in your back? The limited range of motion when you bend over, had full range of motion, bam, palms flat on the floor, and no discomfort in her back. Never heard from her again, right? Before that, I thought that the way that you build strength in the body was by repetition after repetition after repetition. I had no idea you do one repetition and you walk away. And now you're turning on this entire system. So what does it mean? Like, what am I telling you? Well, what's the analysis? What's the benefit of what I'm sharing with you? What you simply need to understand is that in your body, you have many things that are turned off. And we want to turn them on to full power. But the thing we want to turn on the full power the most is the emotional body, because it's the strongest. Well, why is it the strongest? Because your will center lives in your emotional body. And our ancestors that were hunters and gatherers, right? They're hunting and gathering, and after an hour, if they're like, oh, well, you know, there's no food here, I guess I'll just lay down and die, right? Would you and I be sitting here? Yes? No?
Of course not.
Of course not. So that means that the will center, the internal will, had to be indomitable, right? It had to be the strongest part of us. And now here we live in modern society, and I'm talking about every type of being, the most successful people in the world at every level, in every industry I've worked with. And every one of them, weak as brand new kittens. And then once we turn that part on, everything in their life changes. Because now they have all the electricity from the brain, and now they have all that magnetism meeting up together, and now their 12 primary electromagnetic channels are full of energy and life force and intelligence and consciousness. What's going to happen? You think they're going to be maximized in their life expression? Yeah, that's what's going to happen. They're going to maximize their life expression. And they're going to create more impact. And you know what happens? Their relationships, they change. Because now, guess what? They're emotionally present. They understand the value of listening. They understand the value of connecting. They understand the value of their wants, their desires, their needs. They're able to communicate them. And now, do they shift into greater states of happiness or unhappiness? They shift into greater states of happiness, greater states of joy, greater states of peace. And so for me, when I'm working with someone through the true body intelligence path, I understand the essential steps that we have to take first. Like the very basic thing. I got to turn your electricity on, and I got to turn on your magnetism. And now we got a real shot at resolving whatever it is that has you under fire. Because all we need to do is do what? Put the body in a favorable position, and what will it do? It will heal itself. Your body will heal itself if you put it in a favorable position.
So the emotional body is the strongest one because it controls the human drive, which is connected directly to the outcome of the species, because whatever we express in private, like you gave the example with the hunters, if the will wouldn't be there, then the entire species wouldn't survive. So now that we free our ability to have, well, I guess you can say a free emotional body, then it gives us the ultimate drive to achieve things we've never done before.
Yes, yes. And one of the things that is helping you to achieve is to get into a state of being, right? Versus a state of doing. So the brain, both your hemispheres, the right and the left hemisphere, they're part of the analytical body. They're all about doing. The emotional body is all about being sensitive, being kind, being generous, being thoughtful, being careful, being hopeful, being honest, okay, being free, being passionate, being creative, okay? So now we can shift our energy and our focus into our being, and we become aware of how we're being versus what we're doing. See, women get what? They build their esteem from how they're being. Men build their esteem from what they're doing. See, the brain is about the doing. The sexual organs, the emotional body, it's about the being. And so to be able to be in neutrality, I must have to be doing and being simultaneously. Right? Because who cares about what you're doing if the way that you're being is harmful? Again, who cares about what you're doing if the way that you're being while you're doing what you're doing is harmful?
Yeah, because the doing ultimately comes out of the being. So your action comes out of the state that you're in. So if you're in a state of agitation, even if you try and put a nice facade on it, still the intonation in your voice, your behavior, it sifts through. Other people recognize, or their subconscious recognizes that that's going on, and you perpetuate that emotion, you perpetuate that feeling.
Yeah, so
and then other people are then in a different state of being that is not conducive for their or the collective growth.
to simplify that, let's take the example of a chef. You go to a restaurant, he's agitated, irritated, frustrated, and resentful because he's getting unfair and inequitable exchange that he's perceiving. And now he's come to cook your dish. You've arrived like right before he closes the kitchen. He's already in a state of like, good, I can turn off the stove. And then the manager's like, no, you got to keep the stove on. This family just got here. And now he's upset and bothered. Now he's cooking that food from an upset, bothered place. Well, his state of being is affecting my body's ability to digest that food because now we're competing energetically.
Oh, so you're saying not just direct interaction, but it can be instantiated in any form of interaction or matter or anything.
Yeah, because everything is made of energy, right? So how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, how I'm sensing, how I'm emoting is impacting everything. And so when your emotional body is turned on full throttle and your electricity in your brain is turned on full throttle, you have access to rich, deep states of neutrality, plus the emotional body's turned on now. So now we've got access to motivation and inspiration, right? And these deep emotions and these ways of being. Like, wow, it feels so good to run versus I gotta run because I know it's healthy for me, right? You come back from run, your fiance says, how was the run? Oh, it was good. Versus you come back, how's the run? I feel great, right? Feeling great is in the being, right? I did the run is in the doing. So what if you could do and be simultaneously? Well, it's an absolute impossibility to do and to be simultaneously if your brain is operating at a lateralized state of function and your emotional body is turned on very little. So whenever you're developing a human and you're taking someone through a true transformational process, it is absolutely essential to turn on both hemispheres of the brain electrically and to turn on their emotional body. And now you've got the emotional brain and the analytical brain supporting the entire system. And that's what those two are for. Now I'm in flow, regardless of what's going on around me. That's a powerful position to be in. It's an essential step in your development. Without that step, you think you're going to maximize your life expression? If you do, you're telling yourself lies, I can promise you that. And I want you to maximize your potential, so that's why I'm sharing with you these essential steps. So take action. Take heartfelt action to your own benefit. It benefits your kids. Imagine if mom is in a more consistent, stable mood. Do children have to walk around on eggshells? You know how stressful that is? I had a mom who was like, her moods were all over the place. I always had to be on eggshells because I never knew when she was going to act out in a way that was vicious or harsh or sharp or cold. So now I'm at the ready. Instead of being free to express myself and investigate and be curious in my environment. Now I got to worry, is the hammer going to come down? Okay, I'm really sure how she's going to interpret what I'm doing. And so if you care about your children, if you care about your spouse, if you care about your siblings or your parents or your coworkers, do yourself a favor. Light up your brain and light up your emotional body, right? Light up your upper brain and your lower brain. We'll make it simple for people. Upper brain, lower brain, conception vessel, sexual organs. Turn them on. Once they're turned on, you are like miles ahead of every other human on the planet. I mean, miles ahead. You're like, you're in another solar system. That's how far ahead you are.
So I'm assuming that this directly connects to the emotional body, then connects directly to connection with other human beings, both
Yes.
platonic and sexual and romantic and all of that.
Yeah, interpersonal, co-worker relationships. Yes, because guess what? When you are resisting against me with maximal force, you have to be absolutely connected to me, and I have to be absolutely connected to you. And then when that happens, and there's a powerful positive result, your emotional body says, hey, it's safe to be connected to somebody else. And once your body knows that, now it has no fear around connection. Now when you go into a social emotional environment, hey, how are you doing, Bob? How are the kids? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, hi, Susie, what have you been up to? Versus like sitting in a corner staring at your phone.
And it changes the entire dynamic of society and yada, yada, yada. You get to collective awakening, basically.
Collective awakening. Do we need a lot of people? No. What am I looking for? 40, 50,000 people? We'll change this. We will literally rock this place open. 40, 50,000 people turn on their brains, their analytical, electrical brains, and turn on their emotional brains simultaneously. Problem solved. The problems are solved, because guess what? Once we reach a certain level of the population turned on, guess what happens to everybody else? They automatically get turned on. Now, is that an invitation for you to take no action? No. Why wait on someone else? Like, be prudent in your action. Do the best you can for yourself.
Be part of the 50,000.
Be part of the 50,000. Like, wake the planet up. Like, if you're... Sure, can you fly to Ukraine and do something? The majority of our population, yeah? Absolutely. No, there's nothing you can do. Okay? Can I fly to Palestine? Can I fly to Israel? Can I fly to... Sure, I could fly there, but can I absolutely impact the change that's going on there? No, I have very little leverage. Okay? 1, do I speak the language? No. Okay? 2, do I fully understand the history? Have I lived their history? No. So am I going to absolutely be able to relate to what's going on? No. Okay? Well, what I can do is I can relate to myself. And I can amplify and activate and turn on myself. When I'm turned on, if I know that that's turning you on, I'm more motivated to do that internal work. Because I want everybody to have the experience of the peace that passeth all understanding. Then once you live there, and once you have a taste of that, then you're okay. Like, just everything is wonderful. Okay? And you trust that there's always a bigger, deeper meaning to the things that you're seeing that feel difficult. And then when you're trusting, you're in alignment. Who are you in alignment with? You're in alignment with the collective will, with the collective mind, with divine, universal, supreme, prime creator. You're in alignment. Well, when you're the opposite, your ability to create impact is very, very small. When electrically, you're operating out of a lateralized state of function because you can only see one side, right? When I'm in whole brain thinking, I can see both sides. If I can see both sides, I can move into a conversation without bias. If I move into a conversation without bias, what happens? I learn all there is to learn. When I have bias, I shut down my learning. Okay? So, you know, the impact of this is enormous. I could go on forever. Yet for the purpose of the work that we're doing here together, I think this is a good place to complete.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good note to end this part.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what we explore next. The emotional body is definitely one of the more fascinating subjects because it relates to both the spiritual and the material all at one. And it activates the personal and the collective. It activates the feminine and the masculine, basically all encompassing. And I think that this is why this is a subject, like you said, that people need to digest a little bit. Do you have any final words on the emotional body before we move on?
Yeah, certainly. When I think about this, I think about distilling it down so that the viewer, wherever they're at in their development, wherever they're at in their education around emotional development, around mental wellness, around health and wellness, around spirituality. I had a lot of ginger tea this morning, so I'm belching, which is a good sign. Chinese medicine, they would consider that to be healthy. What I think is essential is that you understand that the emotional body is simply about connection. And when you strengthen those connections inside your own body, you get access to the deeper levels of emotional intelligence that exist inside of you. And when you're doing that, you're expressing higher levels, higher forms of emotional intelligence. Everyone around you feels more safe to be more connected to you. And you feel more safe to be connected to them. And if you're going to be sharing space with people, which is what the majority of us do, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's at the gym, whether it's at the beach, would it be more powerful to have powerful, intimate, deep, life-affirming connections than, let's say, the opposite? Having very few, very little connections. And I think it's important for someone to feel safe. Because the safer you feel in the world, the more risk you're going to take to do what? To connect to others and add value to their life. And so understanding the need and the impact of turning on your emotional body is important. And hopefully it motivates you the way that it motivated me. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for tuning in to today's content. This will be made available in its full form of everything we put together for you at truebodyintelligence.com. And at truebodyintelligence.com, you can tune into my book, Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's unique journey to inner freedom and outer peace. And there I will teach you at a much deeper level. And this will be really, really, really good reference tool for you. Plus, the audiobook has an opportunity to allow you to start the program already by purchasing the one with the energetic integrations, and that will help you get started. All of this content will also be available on all major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube.